Hello, everybody. How are you doing? Welcome back to the Bolus Maximus podcast. We're here with a special guest, a very good friend of mine, Martin Jones. We grew up together. Go ahead, Martin. Let
What's
the people
up,
know about you.
everybody? Yeah, I'm Martin Jones. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys today. I'm really ready to just get into it. What's up?
Well, where are you coming from? You're in Southern California, but where are you coming from today?
I'm coming from Atlanta, Georgia.
Welcome.
That's where I live
East
now.
Coast.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank
The weather's a little better here, is it not?
It's a lot better. It makes me want to leave my family and come here. No, I'm joking. It makes me want to leave and come here, though, for sure.
Speaking of, what are we talking about today, Brandon?
Hey, man, we're going to be talking about family and family members that have diabetes, most importantly. So, we're going to jump right into this thing. Mar, you're no stranger to diabetes. You know that I live with it. We grew up together. You knew that I had it. And then, if you want to just give us a little bit about where you're from, how you grew up, and, far as how diabetes has affected you, just you personally, and then also your family.
Absolutely. So, I'm one of 4 children, middle child, but both of my parents has diabetes. Actually, so everybody except me has diabetes.
Wow.
And so, like I said, it started out with my mother when she had her second child, my sister Valoria. My sister was she was born with diabetes.
Okay.
And type 1 on insulin. When my mother had me, she developed diabetes herself. She had type 1 diabetes. So that's 2 of them. And just watching my sister grow up with diabetes, it was tough to watch just because, I seen how much she wanted to eat the stuff that we ate. And, she couldn't. And, I seen times where she tried to commit suicide because it was so rough for her just having diabetes. She was so restricted in her eating that it was just that frustrating.
I wonder, was it probably like she felt like she didn't fit in, probably, you know what I mean? Because she didn't have anybody to probably either talk to or be able to cope with, you know what I mean, as far as dealing with it, and I know that's something that a lot of people, especially teenagers and things like that, they go through, because it's just you get to that stage, it's you're almost like an outcast. People say that you're different. We're all different, but you know what I mean? As a kid, when you hear different, it's almost like it's bad,
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. So, and I never even looked at it like that, but I can see that now that you're saying that. And so later on, I say about 10 years ago, my dad had got diagnosed with type 2 diabetes.
Okay.
And then probably around 2013, my brother got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. Or actually, it was type 2, and then it developed to type 1.
So let me ask you.
Maybe misdiagnosed.
And that's what I was. And that's what I'm saying, because that happened.
Possibly misdiagnosed.
Yeah.
Okay.
It could have been a misdiagnosis. Do you know if it was, or did they just say he had type 2 and then it went to type 1?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
It could have been very much a misdiagnosis.
Okay.
We only, from our experience speaking with other individuals, when something like that happens, it's because of a misdiagnosis. So that sounds like, yeah. All right. So your mother, your sister first, then your mother, then your father, and then your brother.
Correct. And then now that leaves me and my little sister. And around 2018, she was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And I just seen how much of an effect that had on her, especially off the strength that, obviously we were close to my sister, but of course her being the only other, female with her sister, losing her sister from basically diabetes, from ketoacidosis and stuff like that. So for her to develop, that diagnosis, it fell really hard on her, and she's had challenges and even a couple, hospitalizations due to it.
So she was, if I'm understanding correctly, only your sister who passed. Again, respect and condolences.
Thank you.
only she was diagnosed at a young age.
Yeah, at
everyone
birth,
else,
pretty much. Or no, at two.
So everyone else was an adult.
That is correct.
Yeah,
That is
that's
correct.
crazy.
And like, I just personally feel like the only reason why I wasn't diagnosed with diabetes is because I never went to the doctor for them to tell me that I had diabetes.
And I remember talking. Yeah, we talked about that.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I honestly, like, growing up, like, I was the person who like scarfed my plate and like went for seconds. Like, by the time I finished 2 plates, that's when everybody finished their plate. Like, my diet was the worst out of everyone.
Animal.
And like, so even growing up, like, I've recently made like changes to like eat healthy and things like that. But like,
I mean, look at you. You swole. Look how swole you are, bro.
yeah. I mean, you know, but like again, so like, it's just one of those things where you just, man, it's just crazy to know like how many people are affected by not just diabetes, but like a whole bunch of diseases based off of what these doctors, these licensed people to practice medicine is telling us.
Like license.
You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, you have this, now take this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you have this, now take this insulin. Like,
Yeah, and that's a lot of people who, like your brother, possibly, we don't know the situation there, but possibly was told, you're a type 2, take all of these medications, which, as for type 1s, don't do jack for us as a type 1. But as a type 2, this is what you need to take, right? You usually take inhibitors. A lot of type 2 diabetics take inhibitors so that their body starts to regain control of the insulin that it does make, whereas opposed to Brandon, myself, your sister, brother, our type 1 diabetes completely stops our body from making any insulin at all. And so I think it's very interesting because type 2 is very, how many, you watch television, if you watch a football game, you watch a baseball game, how many commercials do you see for people to lower their A1C today?
Yeah.
Diabetes medication, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
That's everywhere, you know?
yes, sir.
But let us throw this note out there.
Yeah, we are not trained medical professionals. Disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer.
Disclaimer. We always got to throw that out there. You know?
Important. Important. Well, let me ask you this, and I think
sure.
Again, we just thank you for sharing, right? Because it's not easy for diabetics to share, but also to be somebody in a family. You know, we were just kind of talking like you're the only one that doesn't have it, whereas a lot of times there's only one person in the family that has diabetes,
Right.
and it is also typically considered a family disease, right? Just because I live with it, my parents deal with it, my siblings deal with it. What have you done? What were ways that you were able to realize, you know, there could be something else you could do maybe for your siblings, or have you ever had that thought? Like, how can I help them?
Absolutely. So like I've been researching along with my own health journey. I've been researching things for diabetes just to see like, again, like my siblings just over time develop that diagnosis. It's mind-boggling. It made me question everything. Yeah. You know what I mean? Especially when I seen my sister, you know, when she got type 1 diabetes a few years ago in 2018, and like just to see like the drastic like health decrease, you know, changes due to putting something new in her body that's supposed to be medicine.
Yeah.
And like that's what pushed me to be like, okay, let me research what I can to see what I can come up with as opposed to what someone is saying. So I watched, you know, a lot of different YouTube subscribers and stuff like that create content, and I realized that there's been a lot of success stories around reversing diabetes through certain cleanses. So there's certain herbs you can take, you know, to cleanse the liver and the pancreas, the things that have a major effect on diabetes, that it can be reversed, and finding out that most diseases can be reversed.
So, and this is one of those things too. What I look at, you know, as far as them being able to be reversed, because I've heard this before too. You know, and you know, and I'm my own person. I have my own opinion. I feel that there are things that can help aid with living with type 1 diabetes, you know, because if there's a if you can make little subtle changes and differences, if you continue to do those, what is, ultimately I look at it like, what does that look like? Does that put you in a position to where your pancreas could begin to work again? Could it be that maybe you don't have to take as much insulin? And also look at it as, RIP the great Nipsey Hussle, but he said something, anytime your body becomes immune to something, it needs it, no matter what it is. And to me, that I've always, like, that's kind of stuck in the back of my head, because it's like, wow, that's kind of deep. Because if you depend on something, then you have to use something to help you. And sometimes it's like it's masking it, because insulin isn't a cure. It's more so like just something that you use daily to help you get through. You know what I mean?
Right. And like that's my problem with over-the-counter medicine, just the whole medical industry. Is like nothing is meant to cure your condition.
Yeah.
Including vaccines.
Yeah.
That's not meant to cure anything. You know what I mean? So
that's a whole that's a whole nother topic.
It is. I ain't want to go there. But like,
you're right.
Today that's like the main topic of discussion in our society. And so like it's just one of those things again where it's like, this medical regimen that they have us following, it's never cured any of our issues. So like, and they have all the money in the world. They have all the money to do the research and do what they need to do. And like, here we are still in 2021, approaching 2022. And
they don't need us walking around a freaking block to raise money to cure diabetes. Like, I know.
Exactly.
So, and I think it's a pretty touchy subject, right, for a lot of people, because I think vaccination is one thing, but vaccinations aside, you're looking at, insulin is a synthetic hormone that is currently distributed by several companies in the world, right? And a couple years ago, at the end of 2019, I started looking into public information, or I guess at the beginning of 2020. And one of the companies that makes our insulin, to your point, in just the fourth quarter, made almost $700 million in one quarter.
Just the fourth quarter.
And that was on just one insulin.
Oh my God.
So that one insulin is what's in this insulin pump, but not his. Okay. So he uses a whole different one. They got a whole nother set of numbers, that look very similar.
Right.
Over the course of the year, if you're raising $2 billion, we got on this real quick, but it's important because I think a lot of the conversations that we have as Bolus Maximus have been pretty open. It's a lot of males, a lot of females, right? You met Anna tonight.
Yes.
A lot of individuals that have gotten involved. But one of our focuses, and as we continue to look at the community, is the Black community. And it is hyper-focused for us as an organization, knowing that especially with diabetes, it is a major topic.
Yes, sir.
And not only that, I'm not speaking. I'm white. I've never been in a situation where I've had years and years of information from ancestors and relatives past for me to know and understand things. My dad was a doctor, so I was like, yeah, science. Go ahead.
Right.
So that's where I didn't really have a choice to ever make some of those decisions. Even now, I'd probably still do it. But it's interesting because I think there's a lot to be desired in communities, underserved, underrepresented. They need information, and they need tests, and they need results, and they need to look at data. Right.
Yeah.
And it's not always readily available for everybody, and it's not clear.
In the data, man, like you hitting on the data is important. And I think this goes back when we talked to Quisha Umemba at Diversity and Diabetes. The data is there, so it's like what and this is something that I begin to pay attention to with the data, because we look at the data. We know what the issue is in these particular communities, people of color, Black communities, food deserts, They don't have access to the proper nutrition. They don't have access to the proper care, and they're not getting the education or the knowledge that they need as it pertains to their culture.
Not even that. They're not making a proper living wage. People aren't paying what in half of the country, the minimum wage is under $10 or around $10.
So how do you stay alive, but let alone
That's
stay
absurd.
alive with diabetes? Like it's damn near impossible.
Right. Especially if you have 2 or 3 kids.
Right.
You had 4 kids in your family. I was only one of 2. You were 2.
Yep.
You think about how different it is from one household to the next. If the household with only 2 kids is just getting by and doing okay, they may have no idea what's happening in the house next to them.
Yep.
And that house next to them may never let on to anybody what's happening.
Nobody knows.
Because people think it's a weakness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Or that you're not doing what you...
And I'm glad you brought that up because, and you know, I mean, growing up in Ypsilanti, you know, being in Ann Arbor, being in Ypsilanti, being in Detroit metro area, you know, as being black or a person of color, is looked at as a weakness if you say you need help, or kind of like you say, it's just known for us to like just get through whatever we're going through. And,
right,
you know, and
right.
And it's like, you know what I mean? And it's not mentally, we don't see it at that time, but it really is the dumbest thing to do, because it's like, oh, it's nothing wrong with me. But it's like, no, there is something wrong.
Right.
And it's okay if it's something wrong, because like, let's fix it now so we don't have to correct it later, because later might be too late.
Right. And that's why I want to commend you guys on your podcast, because you're able to be a voice for people that want to hear these things, or you know, want to put people on game to this and get different point of views. You guys are creating that. So like, kudos to you guys for real.
Appreciate that, Martin.
Appreciate that. Martin. Well, it's definitely interesting to hear from your perspective and what you've gone through. And it's very valuable, I think, for individuals to hear that you're probably not alone. If you have members of your family that live with diabetes, you may be the only one that has diabetes, but there are individuals out there like Martin who have a family who everyone is diabetic. And we want to make sure, would love to connect. I'm sure you know his siblings, but would love to reach and connect and maybe have another conversation, you know, further down the road. Because I think it's important. There are a lot of families out there that there are multiple children who live with diabetes. And they're young. They're like under 6 years old. You know, we're in our 30s. Right. So for us to be able to talk, especially to the community where you came from.
Yeah.
You know.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think it's super important. So I'm super appreciative of you sharing and feeling open and being okay sharing it. So
yeah,
appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Hey, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Is anything else out there? I mean, that you
ask us a question. You got to ask us a question before you leave. Think about something that might have been on your mind. You maybe with your brother. I can imagine, like, if you and Brandon were brothers, they're probably as best of friends as you could be. There's something that you're not going to tell him or may not want to ask him, you know? So I can imagine at some point, maybe.
Whatever, man. It's open. The floor is open.
Pressure him.
I mean, the question, I guess I would have a question for you, because like the question that I would have, like, I already know the answer to him. Okay. So like, again, like, I've been researching just doing cleanses and things like that for the body. I'm working on a cleanse that can potentially reverse diabetes. I don't want to act like I created it, you know what I mean? But so it's pretty much just sharing knowledge that I've accumulated through research. Yeah. Would you be willing to potentially do a cleanse to see if you could, you know, reverse? Because I personally feel like a lot, and I know actually by experience, by reaching out to family members who have diabetes, you know, I've told them, I even showed them videos and stuff, and just the research behind it, and like they're still very close-minded to doing it. They haven't taken any steps in that regard, and that is mind-boggling to me. So that would be my question.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a tough one, because I think it's a lot to chew. It's a lot to bite off.
And I understand that.
And then it's a lot to digest. But the most important thing that I've done for myself and more recently is changed my diet and my lifestyle. And I very, very, very much appreciate individuals like yourself who do what you do, right? And you go in either to somebody's home or help them, and they come to you, and you know, you go through a process. Sorry, we can just break for a second here while they put him back.
You got to talk closer too. It's gonna be
Okay. So you're always going through a process with these individuals. What I would say is, in my experience, as somebody who lives with diabetes who requires insulin, it's the amount of insulin that I take that I think is up for debate, not whether or not I need to take it. I could probably take an extremely low amount of insulin and still get by. But some of the individuals we've been working with now, we're talking about insulin sensitivity. And so I've been pretty insensitive, meaning I have to take a lot of insulin to get across what I need. Now that I'm back on an insulin pump, that number is starting to come down again. So instead of me taking like 50 or 60 units every day, I'm taking more like 40, which is good. So that means that I could eat the same amount, but now I'm taking less insulin. So I think over time, doing a cleanse, working towards a diet or a lifestyle change will help you be in a better position to take less insulin and make it a lot easier on yourself.
Okay, so
to manage your diabetes.
Okay, so my next question is like, how would you take that next step to get off of it? You know, so
off
yes,
insulin?
Correct.
I would say, given the research and the studies that have been published through, the most prestigious of medical journals, as somebody who is appropriately diagnosed as a type 1 diabetic, it wouldn't be possible for me to completely altogether stop taking insulin unless there was some kind of like real magical moment that happened. My body will ultimately require insulin for the foreseeable future. And so type 2 diabetes is more understandable in the sense of being reversed or prevented, as opposed to type 1. But I would definitely say, I think the amount of insulin that is taken is the key in insulin sensitivity.
Let me just throw this. I want to throw this back out there again.
We are not trained medical professionals. Disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer.
Disclaimer. All right, that was it.
No, that's dope. Because and I respect everything you're saying, and like, but I don't agree with it just because like I just personally believe that, like, again, like we listen to these professionals and all this documented things that are supposed to be a golden standard of like authenticity, and I just don't believe it. And like, so so my goal overall, like I said, I want to, my goal is to create the cleanse for Brandon so he can, potentially can reverse the diabetes. And obviously, if that worked, that would be enough for you to
yeah, man.
Yeah. So like, that's really where.
And then I think this is a better answer, right? Like, regardless of what the outcome, and ultimately we could go back and forth and talk about, right, those two different sides. Right. What I would say is, hell yeah, man, give me the cleanse. Let me get on it. Let me see what happens, right? Because I've gone from, in the last year, I went from using an insulin pump back to taking shots, using pens, and my numbers went to hell. Mm-hmm. So my body I gained weight. I was sluggish. I didn't feel good. And so now that I'm back on a pump, it's easier for me because the insulin is more consistent. I know I'm getting it. That's faster.
I have a great question for you guys. Even these, like, what are these called? These are awesome.
The glucoses.
These glucoses are awesome.
That's mine.
That's his. That's his.
Are you wait? Hold on. Are you sure that that's his? Which one is Matt's and which one is mine?
You're wearing a purple shirt, some shit. I don't know. I think that one's yours.
Well, these are new products. These just came out. It's called the Glucose, and it's super cool. So this is the first time we've had two of them in the same room working at the same time.
Yeah, and you can check it out. We're gonna throw the link in the description, and you can visit glucose.com. Definitely check it out. It's a new way to monitor your glucose without actually looking at a number and knowing exactly what that number is. But by looking at the color, you know what range your blood sugar could potentially be in. And, it's awesome. It's awesome using these, so.
What are you thinking? Yeah,
my question is like, okay, so like these things go red, obviously, like,
You already know.
Probably.
Right.
Yep.
So when these things go red, or when you have a device that tells you that you're low or you're high, do you feel the same way inside yourself? You know what I mean? Because you guys react to what these things tell you, but how accurate is it? Or I don't even want to ask how accurate it is. I just want to know do you feel the same way that these things reflect? Because a lot of times you guys are putting something into yourself because these things tell you basically you should. And I personally believe that putting that into your body could have an adverse effect on your health.
I'll go first, and I know we are a little under 2 minutes. We are at the 2-minute drill right now, so we're gonna put this in overdrive. So I actually love that question. I think it's based off of a feeling personally for me. I think this is an extra tool that helps that. Especially like if I'm sleeping, I can kind of look over, don't have to go on my phone, check the number. I can see this, but I can feel my lows. For people that can't, that can be, I mean, let's just be honest, that you could die from, not taking care of it. So I think being able to look at this and understand that I could potentially be low, I could potentially be high. A lot of mine comes from feeling. I could feel low or feel high. Some people, they can't feel that. So this is another measure that can be like, oh, you may be potentially be low, and then they can check, and they can check the app in their phone if they, if they're using a CGM, and then they also can prick their finger, which will let them know that. I mean, pricking your finger is the best way.
One of the main questions I think that gets asked when somebody's newly diagnosed or coming up on in a new diagnosis, the doctor may ask them how they feel. And it's not always an immediate attachment for somebody who's newly diagnosed to say, this is how I feel during this time, because the number's a constant, right? Like we've always got like this number. So mine's 130 right now. Mm-hmm. I'm always looking at a number. It's always going to be there. It could be 500. It could be 50, but it's always going to be there. Mm-hmm. So for me to know that, I have this idea that I'm either going to be good, really bad, or really bad, right? Like it's either bad, or good. And so the most that I can do is what I've been doing for myself. And once it starts to feel good, create a process and a routine.
Can I say something real quick?
Yeah.
Always.
All right, awesome. I wonder like what studies do they do on people who are not diabetic in regards to like, because I just feel like everybody's levels, like diabetic or not, your levels go up and down. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So the only difference is like you're diagnosed with diabetes. So you know what I'm saying? Like you're prescribed to take something because you're diagnosed. And since I'm not,
check this out. Check this out.
Yes.
So there's a company right now that makes a product. There's a couple companies right now that make a product that are going to continuously test your blood sugar and tell you what it is. And those companies are not marketing that product to people that have diabetes.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
So one of the biggest pieces, I would almost call it a missing piece for athletes in a way, has been your sucrose or glucose intake while you're exercising and while you're being active, right? Like you could run a marathon and know what your heart rate is, how many steps you've taken, all that crap. You may have no idea what your blood sugar could be 300, and you may not know. And so there are currently companies that they have probably been making diabetes products. An offshoot has now been focusing on marketing to athletes to say, wear this little device like this.
Yeah.
And when you're running, you can just check, right? You're going to do a 10-mile run. You can just check the whole time. You can know what your blood sugar is. And so that's what's coming out now. But it's a good question because would you wear one of these?
Is there a needle in there?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, you scared of needles?
Yes.
So that's what so you would have to wear something like this to be able to get that number, right? So the only place that number comes from is this.
Okay.
So that's where, if you're not living with diabetes, because it's not something that you're constantly thinking about, and it's not as important as it is to what I'm thinking about, it's kind of passive, I would think, from somebody who doesn't live with it, because if it's not something that is an immediate action item, what's the concern?
Yeah.
Now you're a fitness guy.
So touchy, man.
You're a fitness guy, right? So you're thinking about it. And you're a chef who makes meals and does meal prep and does cleanses. So your mind is like almost completely surrounding this.
Yeah.
In a weird way.
It is.
But it's not necessarily going into, the diabetes aspect.
The focus of that.
Right.
Correct.
Right. But it's a great, dude. I think it's a great question.
That was a hell of a question.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Thanks for having me.
Nah, man.
Are there claps on here? All right.
hold on one second.
Yeah, there's claps on here.
You guys are too kind. Thank you.
So I think what we want to do is keep up these conversations and have more of a dialogue exactly like we are now, and speaking to individuals with family members and individuals who are creating cleanses and doing their own research. So it's good to be able to kind of compare and see where somebody. It's interesting, right? We come from families where we're the only one. You come from a family where you're the only one on the opposite side.
Correct.
And so to kind of compare, it's like it's interesting. So
I almost want to go to a doctor just to see like if they diagnose me with diabetes.
So you can
I can walk out like
you could do something called TrialNet.
Yeah.
You could do something called TrialNet. You can do it. They can tell you if you have the antibodies.
Yeah. Through trial. Yeah. If you go through TrialNet,
we'll connect you. We'll send you out there. Like seriously though. It'd be interesting to have this conversation, then come back after the fact and see what's going on.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Let's do it.
All right.
Yeah.
Hey, Martin, I want to thank you for joining us on the Bolus Maximus podcast with me and my co-host, Matthew R. Taro. Do you got anything else to say to the people out there?
That camera might be off.
It might be.
I just want to say
that one's on.
That one's on.
A healthier diet is a healthier life. And research is always key. Do your own research to come to your own conclusions. That's all I got.
I like that. Be your own best advocate. You are your own best advocate.
Yes, sir.
Hey, man, we thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me again. Appreciate
Always.
that. Awesome.
Always, bro.
My man.
As always, keep it 100.